Welcome to the 13th episode of the series Decolonizing the Mind. Today I'm going to talk about the role of the US and Western Europe in propping up Israel and preparing for war in Western Asia. There are different kinds of colonialism in the history of Western colonialism. And if I look at, try to figure out why is the West so adamant in supporting Israel, then it is because they are colonial powers and they view Israel as a colonial power that needs to be saved. It's part of their colonialism. And obviously there's a legacy of the Holocaust in which I'll go into. I'll detail the way the West is supporting Israel and give an assessment of the Western position on a nuclear war in Western Asia. Now, I distinguish between 5 types of colonialism. One, the first is where they wipe out the total population. That happened in Abya, formerly known as the Americas, in many parts of the Caribbean, in countries like Argentina, and many other countries. Original population have been wiped out. Then there are colonialism where the indigenous population still exists, but forms a small minority. The USA, Canada, Australia, Aotearoa in formerly New Zealand. The third one is societies where the transatlantic enslavement had a major demographic, social, and cultural impact, which is in the Caribbean, in Brazil, obviously, with the largest Black population in the diaspora. And then the colonial society where a small white stratum of administrators with the help of an army, governed a large majority of the population. Asia, Africa, these were countries where a small white minority governed and administered the colony. And then you have settler colonialism, in which a white population of the colonizer has settled in a colony, took over land and control of one country. And obviously Israel is an example of settler colonialism. Now, the basis of Western support is, as I mentioned, Israel is seen as part of Western colonialism, although it's not articulated in that way by Western politicians and intellectuals. They regard Israel as part of Western civilization. And by defending Western colonialism, in general, they defend Israel as a colonial project in particular. Then Israel's role as a provider of military and security technology and training in many pro-Western countries is also a basis of support. Israel has created this large network providing military and security technology, training people in Africa, in different parts of the world, pro-Western countries, and that is then paid off by the support of those people, pro-Western people in the global south for Israel. Then Israel is a military force in Western Asia. If you want to control Syria, Iraq, Hezbollah, Iran, Israel is a military arm of Western colonialism to control Western Asia. So defending Israel and keeping its military force alive, that is the basis for ensuring Western domination of Western Asia. And then you have the legacy of the Holocaust. Europeans have guilt, the European guilt of the Holocaust has elevated the Holocaust as the top of human suffering. And therefore, you need to support the apartheid state of Israel. They don't call it apartheid state, of course, because it's a compensation of the guilt for a crime they have committed in the West against the Jewish people. In one of the coming series, when I talk about world history, I'll come back to the Holocaust and how to decolonize the Holocaust. Then the Western financial support for Israel. That is very elaborate and big, and it started very early. In 1952, Germany, after World War II, and the State of Israel, with a organization called the Conference on Jewish Claims Against Germany, they negotiated in the Dutch town of Wassenaar to establish an agreement for compensation, reparations. And the original agreement covered the payment of 822 million, less than a billion, that Germany was going to pay to Israel and to the Claims Conference for the period 1952 to 1965. So 13 years. And that would have been the reparation. That's done. What happened now? The money was used to build the infrastructure of the State of Israel and to create awareness among the German population about the horrors of the Holocaust. And at the end of the day, it led to an annual continuation of reparation payments after 1965. In 2012, the German government had paid out more than 70 billion since 1952, and they are still paying, which is 85 times the original amount that they agreed upon in 1952. In 2024, Germany has scheduled a transfer of another 1.4 billion in additional reparations. Now, the Claim Conference wrote evaluation 6 years after the agreement and said, who could have foreseen during those initial negotiations that the Claim Conference would still be negotiating on behalf of Nazi victims more than 60 years later? So the reparation money for the Holocaust is huge. I'm talking about 70 billion in 2012. That's when I collected the figures and recently saw the additional 1.5 billion scheduled for 2024. And this helps create a strong Jewish diaspora outside Israel and a strong support financially for Israel by Germany. And in Europe, there are continuously lawsuits against those who are responsible for the Holocaust or benefited from the Holocaust. And in 2000, 3 Swiss banks had to pay 1.3 billion after a lawsuit which was waged against them to the victims of 5 years of Holocaust. So that is only for Europe, for the Holocaust. And then the European Union has research programs. One is called Horizon Europe's research program. Israel has benefited immensely of this program. More than 1,600 grants totaling 1.3 billion euros were given to Israeli organizations through grants from the European Research Fund. 2 largest arms companies, Elbit System and Israeli Aerospace Industry, received European funding to develop arms. And then from the United States, the US foreign aid, the largest recipient of US foreign aid is Israel. And until February 2022, 150 billion was transferred to Israel. Per year, they transfer from the United States to Israel $3.8 billion for military aid. US banks provide Israel with commercial loans at lower interest. And now the 3 billion per year is added with a financial support for the war in Gaza by the US budget for 14.5 billion US dollars. So you see, there's a huge financial support for Israel. And then Israel is supported indirectly by the funding of its collaborators. The Palestinian National Authority, after the Oslo Agreement, gets money from the EU, US, and Arab states. The US provided 5.2 billion in 1991. Europe gives 225 million every year, last year. So the Palestinian Authority, National Authority, is getting this money because they do the job that Israel wants them to do, which is maintaining security for Israel in the West Bank, previously in Gaza, but they lost control of Gaza. And a similar thing is with Egypt. Since 1978, the peace accord, Egypt got 50 billion in military and 30 billion in economic assistance. They wouldn't have got this money if they didn't support Israel's existence. So the funding of Israel's existence is not only directly to Israel, but also for the support infrastructure for Israel. And then you have the Western political support for Israel, the dominant media support, of which we all can see every day, the support in international organizations condemning Israel for apartheid, oppression, and violations of international law. Whenever people from the global south and nations from the global south come in international organizations with resolutions, then they are voted down or they are sabotaged by the West. And obviously the official government support for the majority of Israel's policy under the name of the right to self-defense. Now, then there's direct military support for Israel. The US Army and Navy military personnel are on the ground in Gaza. It's there in open sources. The commanders of CENTCOM, the Central Command, have teamed up with Israeli commanders at an underground base in Tel Aviv to supervise and direct operations of the Israeli occupation forces. So the US Army is directly involved in the war in Gaza. They have 2,500 American troops in Iraq, 900 in Syria, and these are military personnel that are ready to support with boots on the ground. The United States has sent 2 aircraft carriers and their supporting ships since October 7. They are preparing for a regional war. Britain sent surveillance aircraft, 2 Royal Navy support ships, and about 100 Royal Marine since October 7. And then you have the nuclear arsenal of Israel. Israel produces nuclear weapons since 1967. They get their uranium from Argentina. They do the nuclear testing in cooperation with France and USA. There's an estimate of 19 nuclear warheads in possession of Israel. And these warheads are not delivered by planes, like Hiroshima and Nagasaki, where a plane carries a bomb and then loses the nuclear bomb. No, they are delivered by submarines, they're shot from submarines or intercontinental ballistic missiles. And the question is, are they going to use the nuclear bombs in a regional war? And my guess is they will not hesitate and they will get the support of the West. I will explain that in the coming series. Tomorrow I'll go into preparation for a regional war by Hezbollah, and I'll take on Iran the day after and show how a regional war is brewing now, and that could have major consequences for the whole of the world. Now, in this book, I deal with Western Asia in different parts, check up in the index Hezbollah or check up in the content table of contents, and then you'll find it. Download a PDF if you want from www.sandohero.com. And if you want to support the DTM channel, subscribe to the channel, encourage your friends, family, and colleagues to subscribe to it, get involved in discussion group. And if you have the ability, then do a donation, and you can find out at the website how to do that. Now, we are living in dangerous times, and it's important to be prepared for the information battle that is going on now. Tomorrow, I'll talk about Hezbollah's preparations for war. See you tomorrow.